The Atlanta Falcons were one of my favorite teams heading into the 2024 season, but after a very bizarre draft, I think it's time we put some attention on this Atlanta Falcons team and talk about what the heck just happened. Now, in case you guys live under a rock, Michael Penix Jr. is now in Atlanta Falcons just weeks after signing Kirk Cousins on a 4-year deal. And while I'm still high on this Atlanta Falcons team, I did not like this decision in the draft, so let's go ahead and talk about this pick and what this pick might mean for the Atlanta Falcons moving forward. So as I mentioned, Michael Penix Jr. was taken in the first round of the NFL draft. Real quick, I do want to cover the rest of their draft because I thought it was a okay rest of the draft. I like the Brandon Dorless pick. I also thought the Braylon Trice pick was also a fun pick as well. But then you took Rook Oro in the second round over a guy like Johnny Newton, which was just such a bizarre pick, especially with the more pass rush needs that this team does have. I mean, when you look at this defensive line, your best pass rusher is going to be Grady Jarrett. I mean, Arnold Ebiketie for his entire career only has 8.5 sacks, and yes, he's a young guy who only has 2 years under his belt, so we'll see if he can develop to become anything. But damn, not taking a very good pass rusher in Jerzon Newton over Rook just didn't make a lot of sense. And then on the other side of your defensive line, you have Taquan Graham, who, I mean, is he even a starter on this team? I don't know. Sure, you got guys like Caden Ellis, Lorenzo Carter, who could potentially pass the rusher too, but let's be honest, this was such a weird pick in the second round, given what you need. And this gets even worse when you had a chance to take Dallas Turner or Laiatu Latu or Jared Verse in the first round, but instead you opted to go for a quarterback who was my 4th-ranked quarterback in this year's draft. And based off the consensus, it wasn't like he was this top 5 player in the draft. It seemed like everyone had a pretty similar grade on Michael Penix. But yet, despite what everyone was saying this Atlanta Falcons team needs to get, which was either a wide receiver 3 to add to your core of Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, and Drake London, or potentially adding a cornerback to add a piece next to AJ Terrell, or hell, to add an elite pass rusher on a team that desperately could use it, they decided to go with what is going to be a backup quarterback for the next 2 to 3 years and maybe at some point a future starter. Now, let me make something very clear. I actually really do like Michael Penix Jr., and I actually really like the idea of him sitting behind Kirk Cousins for a few years. But there comes with a caveat with that. Not when you just signed the guy on a 4-year deal. If we're talking about this pick happening 2 years from now when Kirk Cousins is 2 years into his deal, maybe they haven't won a championship yet, so they're looking for the predecessor, then okay, that makes total sense. But Kirk Cousins hasn't even played a snap in a Falcons uniform, and they're already looking towards the future to replace him at some point. To me, this not only just kind of undermines what the whole idea of getting Kirk Cousins was in the first place, but I think it also kind of tells you what they think about this current roster. In their eyes, this is a completed roster, so what do? They went out there and got their next biggest piece of need, a future franchise quarterback. And in my opinion, if that's the idea about this Atlanta Falcons team, that they are a finished product, then man, I gotta break it to you, they're far from it. Because yes, this Falcons team did take some strides forward last year, especially on the defensive side of things, but this is still a team that has a lot of glaring needs. Again, with the 8th overall pick, taking a guy like a Laiatu Latu, who I think will be a fantastic pass rusher for the Indianapolis Colts, would have been such a nice addition to have to this defensive line as a guy who can be a pure pass rusher who can get 10 to 12 sacks a year. Or hell, go out there and take the upside of a guy like a Dallas Turner, who now is going to be playing in Minnesota Vikings uniform, who's going to be a fantastic player for them, who I could also see becoming one of the better defensive players. And let me just say, if any of these defensive edge rushers in the first round end up being very good and Michael Penix maybe doesn't work out, there's going to be a lot of questions about what the Atlanta Falcons did there. Going back to what I was saying though, look at Jared Verse, who went to the LA Rams, which by the way is such a fun situation for him to go to. He was somebody who I thought had a very low floor and somebody who I thought could have potentially maybe ended up in the top 15. If you look back to some of my past mock drafts, I'm pretty sure I had the Falcons taking Jared Verse in a couple of those mock drafts because I thought the fit there would be so perfect. Jared Verse is at his best when his hand is in the dirt and he's being a pure edge rusher. And that's exactly what this Falcons team needs. Or hell, why not add a corner next to AJ Terrell, who by the way is going to be looking for a new contract in the next couple years. Right now, your second starter next to AJ Terrell is going to be Clark Phillips III, who via PFF has a 58.5 coverage grade and only has 231 coverage snaps last year. Now yes, he's a young guy who's only 22 and a half years of age, who was taken in the 4th round in last year's draft, so yes, maybe he can pan out to become something in this league, but when you have a chance to take a Terrion Arnold or a Kool-Aid McKinstry or somebody, whether it's in the first round or the second round, because yes, Cooper DeJean and Kool-Aid McKinstry were also available in that second round, but yet you decide to go ahead and take the quarterback, again, is a very questionable draft pick. Now, I understand that Rook Oro should be that future edge rusher on this team, or potentially a interior defensive lineman who can be both a pass rusher and a high upside run defender. And I did like the idea of taking maybe something else in the first round besides a pass rusher, and then taking the second, third, and fourth on edge edge rushing guys. Like, had they drafted a Terrion Arnold with their first pick and then went about their draft the same way they did, I would call this a pretty successful draft for this team, because then they would have had a second cornerback to add to the secondary. They also would have had the same guys they have now in the edge rushing room, which I think are high upside guys. And I think that, yes, we'd still be complaining about the fact they took Rook over a guy like a Jerzon Newton and a Kool-Aid McKinstry, but I still feel like if they took the guy in the first round, we wouldn't be talking about it nearly as much, because everyone has different grades on different players, so it's not like it's a big deal if a team has a higher grade on certain players over other players. It just kind of is how it is. But when you're in a situation like the Atlanta Falcons where you are going all in with Kirk Cousins and this really talented offense, you need to find pieces to add to your defense to match what your offense is going to be able to do next year. And I get it, Kirk Cousins is coming off a torn Achilles, and yes, you might want to have insurance at that position, given the fact that Kirk Cousins is an injury-prone player who's also on the backstage of his career. But if you were that fearful about this guy tearing an Achilles that you're going to be willing to draft a quarterback in the first round, then why'd you sign him in the first place? If you're so concerned about Kirk Cousins tearing his Achilles and you're going to be needing your future franchise quarterback, why not just go out there and get somebody else, or hell, just not pay Kirk Cousins in the first place, and then you have Michael Penix be your starter next year? And then there's a side of this, of that Michael Penix Jr. is almost 24 years of age, which makes him one of the oldest quarterback prospects we've seen in quite some time. Penix is not somebody who you want sitting on your bench for the next 2 to 3 years, because by the time he gets his first start, if he ever does, we're talking about a 26, 27, potentially 28-year-old quarterback who's going to be just a few snaps away from being a 30-year-old quarterback in the NFL. For context, I'm pretty sure Dak Prescott just turned 30 like, what, 2 years ago maybe? And Dak Prescott's been in the league since 2016. Again, I think Michael Penix Jr. is a very high upside player, but in my opinion, why would you go out there and spend all this money and capital on Kirk Cousins when you could have put it into other positions? If you're going to go out there and draft Michael Penix Jr. anyways, why not go out there and chase a guy like a Danielle Hunter or a Christian Wilkins or a Stephon Gilmore or some piece like that? Because had they skipped out on Kirk Cousins, let him go to another team like, I don't know, Denver or somewhat, and then you take Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th overall pick, and then you got a Christian Wilkins or a really good piece in the free agency market, then okay, we're not having this conversation. In fact, I think we'd all be praising this Atlanta Falcons team similarly to what we're doing to the Chicago Bears. But no, they went out there and gave Kirk Cousins a massive contract. They then drafted the Michael Penix Jr. pick, which we've already talked about why that was a bad pick in the first place, and then you did not address your cornerback room at all, and you kind of attempted to fix your defensive line, but you're relying on a bunch of young guys to make big plays early on, and they're just not built for that right now. But okay, I've been fairly adamant I don't like this, so maybe let's talk about some of the positives and how this could potentially work out, and why this could maybe be a good thing, maybe next year or within the next couple years. For starters, again, going back to what I was saying, Michael Penix Jr. is a fantastic player, and I think he is worthy of being a first-round pick. And again, I know I've talked about his age and whatnot, but by the time that he does potentially be the starting quarterback for this team, you're talking about somebody who's going to be super seasoned, has had a lot of time to learn from a very good quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Not to mention, he's going to be able to fully heal from all the injuries he's had in his past college career. And given the fact that Kirk Cousins has had some injury concerns the past couple years, if you do need to have a guy in a pinch, Michael Penix Jr. could be your starter, and who knows, if Kirk Cousins is out indefinitely, then Michael Penix Jr. could be your starter for a lot longer. This is also a situation where I think we all like the upside more of Michael Penix and what he can be as a bigger arm quarterback who's maybe a little bit more of a gunslinger style in comparison to Kirk Cousins. And I also can definitely see how you can make the comparisons to this pick and of course what the Green Bay Packers did with Rodgers and Jordan Love. Now obviously those situations are completely different, but if we compare this to what happened with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, where when Aaron Rodgers got his first start, he was already into his late 20s, and compare that in a sense to what Michael Penix Jr. is going to be by the time he's at a similar age, then okay, maybe Michael Penix Jr. could be the future Aaron Rodgers. But I'm not really buying that, nor should you. If you're that concerned about Kirk Cousins tearing his Achilles again or having another injury, Taylor Heineke's your backup already. He's already a very seasoned player who's been a very solid backup throughout every stop he's been at. Hell, last year he was your starter for some games, so if he's willing to be a starter on your team, I guarantee you he'd be a good backup who can spot play if Kirk Cousins needs to miss a game or two. Again, you don't just pay somebody $180 million to have a lack of trust in them if they're going to be able to stay healthy or not. And I get this pick is not necessarily about the health of Kirk Cousins and more to do with the future of this franchise, but I go back to this point. This team is in a win now mode. They should be all in on 2024 to win a championship in a division that is super wide open. Not to mention, not only is the division division wide open, but I would say the conference is kind of open as well. Like, yes, your San Francisco and 49ers, your Eagles, and your Lions are probably your favorites to win this conference. But let's say the Falcons catch fire with all their young stud players. What's stopping this team from being just as good as those guys? If they went out there and took a top tier edge rusher who knows could have won Defensive Rookie of the Year, or top tier corner who could have done the same thing, we're talking about a completely different defense and a completely different team. To give you guys context as to what this team could have done in this year's draft, they could have taken a Terrion Arnold in the first round, and in the second round you could have taken a Jerzon Newton. Or vice versa, in the first round you could have added a Jared Verse, a Latu Latu, or a Dallas Turner. You pick which one's your favorite. And in the second round you could have had a Cooper DeJean or Kool-Aid McKinstry. Those two picks right there, either way you go, and really whatever order you go with, even if you doubled down and took Terrion Arnold in the first round and Cooper DeJean in the second round, we're still talking about a better draft than what they did this year. Your first two picks were on a Michael Penix Jr. who's not going to start for you next year, hopefully at least. And even though I like the player, he's honestly not worth a top 10 pick to begin with. And then the second round you took another player who I like a lot in Rook Ororo, but he's also not worthy of being a super high second round pick. For context, I had him as a third rounder, maybe fourth rounder if he falls long enough. As your first two picks, that is a very bad combination of two guys who I don't think are going to give you much impact in their first years, in a year where you need some impact rookies like a top tier corner and a top tier edge rusher. So I know I've drilled this into your head that this was a bad pick, but I think when you look at it from all different angles, there really is not a solid explanation as to why they took Penix Jr. If you want to say, oh, well, Metro, they're going for the Green Bay Packers route, okay, but why didn't you do this after a year or two with Kirk Cousins to at least say, okay, it didn't work out with Kirk, let's go ahead and take our guy, let him groom behind Kirk Cousins for a year, and then be the starter. Hell, look at the Kansas City Chiefs, it worked perfectly for them. Alex Smith, long-term starter, draft Patrick Mahomes, he sits for 1 year behind him, looks like a stud in his one game he plays, goes out there the next year, and look what it's done. But no, now you gotta wait for 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 years with Kirk Cousins, then Penix will get a start, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But Falcons fans, I feel for you. I don't like this pick. I think it's a bad mistake. But you guys tell me, what do you guys think? If you enjoy, hit the like and subscribe button. And I love you guys. Peace.